It's time. It's time for the thumb reveal. It's time. Oh, this one doesn't have thumb. This one doesn't have a cover on it. Hello. Welcome to the I really wanted to knit. I just want to go to my happy place and get some knitting done, and I was like, wait, I still have my very, very low quality camera. Maybe we can do a knitting stream. Also, because my throat is dying. Right here we have 54 or 52 stitches cast on. I think it should be fine. I'm trying to make some fingerless gloves. What? Yeah, we knew that. You guys can see a little bit of the gnarly bit where I almost chopped my finger off last month. So, sorry. Well, I actually have these because my circulation is so bad that I have to wear gloves at work. Otherwise, my little fingies will freeze because I'm delicate. You need advice? What kind of advice? We're whipping them both out. Both of the fingers. I'm gonna get banned for being too adult. My friends are saying that your girlfriend's cheating on you with your best friend, and you don't know what to believe. Well, I would just ask and say, hey, I'm having these feelings, and I don't know what's real or not, and judge them by what they say. But at the end of the day, in instances like that, don't listen to Denkel. Do not bang the best friend to make it equal. Chatter is allowed. Hopefully the audio is okay. It doesn't say it's picking up the mic that I'm using as a camera. I don't think it actually has a mic on it. But, oh shoot. I already started doing this wrong, so that's fun. Let's restart. Already started doing it wrong. Woo! Knitting is fun. We like knitting. But honestly, I'd say have an honest conversation about it, and say like, hey, and come with a solutions-based approach. Like, if they're to the point where they're cheating on you for some reason, there's got to be a reason. Either they don't really want to be in the relationship anymore, they feel like they're either like too nice to end it, or they've got their own thing going on. I think it's when you're faced with that quandary, you have to accept that not all relationships are going to last forever. And if you feel like you can't have an open conversation with this person about where your relationship is going, and they feel like they can't have an open conversation with you about it, that may be time to reassess, regardless or not of whether they're cheating. So, but be safe, be nice. I know people's feelings will get hurt. That's just how it's going to go. Sometimes people are offended that you would even ask that, whether if they're not cheating, and it's not a good time. So be prepared to have to understand the emotion they're coming from. So even if they've done something wrong, clearly, or you've done something wrong, regardless of what people are saying, oh, you did this, I did this, they're going to do a lot of like, kind of saying like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. It's like in our nature to want to do that. You kind of have to come at it from a level-headed of, okay, what can I do to fix this or correct this? What can I specifically control in this instance? Because you can't control people's actions and emotions. If someone's going to cheat, they're going to cheat. But what you can do is control your actions and how you interact with that person. 6. Also, if you're 15, doesn't really matter that much. I'm sorry, bud. 7, 8, 9, 10. And when I say, and when adults in general and older people say it doesn't matter, we're not trying to say that your feelings don't matter. Your feelings do matter and they're important. You should respect your feelings. What we're trying to get at is that if something goes south, there is usually very little physical loss. You're not, stuck going to the same college as that person. You haven't bought a house with them. You haven't, lived with them for a while. You don't have to sort that kind of stuff out if you do end up breaking up with someone or something like that happens. But I would say, yeah, at that age, just take it as you can and be upfront about your feelings and say like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I heard. Can you let me know what you think about it? And whether or not you believe that person, you just have to be upfront with them about it and say, hey, I'm sorry, but I don't believe that excuse. Or you're not even excuse. Don't say excuse. I'm sorry, I don't believe that reasoning. And I think we should end it if you want to break up with them. Or if they say the truth, then you discuss like, okay, what do we do from here? Can't stress enough. You can quit. Exactly. And when you're in school and you don't have finances attached to it, you can always just say, no. You can always end it. But navigating friendships are going to be hard. And I think maybe just being open with your friend as to like, hey, why did that happen? If something did happen, is also going to be hard. I suck at counting. What's up? Welcome to the finger stream. VTuber finger reveal. Mamma mia. Finger reveal. Just 2 though. You don't get all of them. Finger pinch reveal. Exactly. I think I gotta have chat up longer because there's going to be periods where I gotta look down because I'm starting a new thing. Okay. So thank you, Dankel. Have a good time. No, am I not? I mean, if they said that something has happened, I think you would just want to assess if you still want to be with that person. And again, it comes back to being upfront. Say like, here's what I know. And based on that, this is what I'm thinking. And here's what I'm going to do. Because again, at the end of the day, you can only control what you can do and how you react to things. You can't, make things that have happened not true or make people not lie if they are lying. But I don't understand why someone would lie about that. If they're really your friend, I don't understand. But then maybe it's worth asking the person, like your friend, like, hey, why? What happened? And they could clear that up. But also, like, in high school, you make stupid mistakes. So what I would say is if your friends that you've been friends with for 5 years, if their general demeanor is like, hey, this was not what I wanted to happen, and I'm so sorry, and they seem to care about how you're feeling in this instance, and they're not like a dick to you in public and in private, then maybe give them another chance in a couple months once you cool down and start hanging out with them again. But also, if they are being a dick to you and they're not really particularly nice about it, you just kind of hang out sometimes, they're probably not a good friend. 2 stitches. That's when you go to Plan Z and you start looking up for other people in your area, in your school, in your zone that have the same hobbies as you, or that have hobbies that you're interested in and that you want to learn more about. Let me bring up chat so I can read the history of it. Oh, I can't believe my freaking $100 mouse is dying. Well, this is my life now. All right, so we're casting on, which is essentially making loops on the needle. We need 44. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't think I'm counting right. This is like casting on is like boss rush for me knitting. The actual knitting part I can handle, but counting my cast on stitches, I always mix myself up. Yeah, if they say that, you should probably cut all ties with them and not speak to them ever again, because clearly they don't respect you as a person. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11. And they're probably not even worth, like, I wouldn't even recommend, like, there's no point in trying to make them feel remorse or make them feel bad about what they did, because they're not going to. $15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And literally, if someone says something like that, like, hi, I did something awful because I think poorly of you, you should literally never believe them. That it is almost never a problem with you. It is them being horrible people and trying to shift the excuse onto someone else. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You need 4 more stitches on here. Yeah, no, don't do vengeance. It never ends well. I mean, you can do vengeance by like being successful and happy. And for these kinds of people, the things that will piss them off the most is just getting over it and not indulging in them. Because for them to say something like that and to genuinely think that, just drop them like a rock. Like, complete ghost, say, okay, bye. And be done with it, because they clearly were trying to get a rise out of you by saying that. They want to hold some emotional power over you. Yes, exactly. Like, if someone comes into this chat and starts to troll, I just take them like completely earnestly, because that takes the winds out of a lot of people's sails when they can't take control of your thought process and make you angry or make you sad. All right, so We need... It's a 2-2 pattern. I really should work on the other project I have, but I'm starting something new out of 3 projects, which is fine. So knit 2, purl 2. I wouldn't recommend it because if anything, that's likely to lead to more drama and them feeling like, oh, well, we have the higher ground here. And also, teen pregnancy sucks, okay? So, like, keep it in your pants. Thank you. That is my professional streamer advice. No, we don't encourage revenge here. Come on. Get on the needle. First row is always the worst. So we're doing the opposite direction for a purl. Have a good evening. Thank you for stopping by, Greg. No worries. I mean, yeah, if you generally like this person, so what are you knitting? These should be fingerless gloves. I literally just started, like we cast on stream. And maybe I don't want to work on this right now. I had the gall to think maybe I could finish this before tomorrow morning, and there's no way in hell that's going to happen with this pattern. So maybe we'll go to the simpler thing, which is just repetitive. Yeah, I'd need to be farther along for this to work that way, I think. Yeah, the only thing I would say is if they're like, oh, I really like this person and you do want to do it, you're running the risk of also having those other emotions come up, because if they're related to the people who are assholes to you, you'll have to see them around. There's no escaping that. Like, they're still going to try and take advantage of you and bully you. Thank you so much for subbing. Welcome in. We usually stream video games, but you know, knitting. Hooray. Aced it. Progress. I'm gonna go pull my other project that's further along. Oy. There we go. Much farther along the lines. It's a it's supposed to be like I'm forgetting the word. Not a balaclava, a cowl. So like a scarf. It's an infinity scarf. I forget they call them a cowl originally, and they call them a cowl now. But if you're old enough, you remember the infinity scarves. I find knitting extremely calming. I like it quite a bit. I have it facing the wrong way. It can certainly be challenging because there are certain things about knitting, like starting a new project, that can be frustrating or hard. Learning it as a skill was difficult. But I would say if you're interested in starting knitting, you can pick up little kits that have like tiny little needles or starter needles like this. You can even thrift a lot of needles. And Walmart yarn is good enough to start learning. And you can make stuff like coasters. So this does not have a great pattern in it. You probably can't see it really well. And this is my Mucky Ugly coaster. But it has kind of like a repeating raised pattern in it. I have one with cable knits that's a lot nicer, but generally if I want to learn a new pattern or a new technique, I'll actually try to make a coaster. Because when you start a project, they'll always tell you to make a gauge swatch anyway, which is just like a little 4x4 square. So coasters. But this project should be a little easier for me to talk and knit during, because it's literally just continual purling, which is, I'll do this one slow so I can show you. Okay, so I have my working stuff here. This is my working needle, and I have the tail or the yarn that's coming from the ball here, pulling through, and then I'm just pulling through this loop here. And say I was starting a new project, I only had stuff here from the cast on. Casting on is essentially setting up the loops for the width of your project. I am knitting what's called in the round, which means it's a continuous loop. You cast on a certain amount and then you just keep going around. Normally, if you're knitting flat, so if you're knitting like a flat square like this, each row, anytime you go from left to right, you flip it over. So there's two different ways of doing it, but this is good for scarves and stuff. So I have my needle through on this top side. If I was doing a knit stitch, it would be the opposite. I would go through the back. But I have the needle through on the top side, pull it over and around, and we're pulling that loop of new thread through and the loop off. And we just keep doing that. Art calms me down. Yeah, art is nice. I do a lot of work with art professionally, so I find that hobbies like this can sometimes be overwhelming for me, but the repetitive motion can be very relaxing. I often will knit during meetings to kind of like collect my thoughts and have a better conversation. So, I'm probably going to be looking down or have my eyes closed rig-wise for most of the stream. It's going to be a little derpy, but that's okay. James is telling us about cooking. Cooking is a craft that helps you relax. Ooh, I like cooking too, but I like refining my cooking to be as simple as possible. Because sometimes when there's too many parts in it and it's like too fiddly, I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. So like if I can get a recipe that's just like throw a bunch of stuff in a pot, I'm like, yeah, that's good. Chop stuff up, throw it in a pot, done. Perfect. I like baking bread though, so I'll probably actually, I don't know if I can tomorrow, but Thursday night I want to try and make some ciabatta rolls for like breakfasts and stuff, some breakfast sandwiches. This sounds really good. No. Cook it slow. You're not running a restaurant. Take your time. I would agree. Yeah. A lot of people do cook way too high on the heat. Yeah. So mostly that kind of method I do for like soups and stuff. Or also if I'm like stir frying something, I'll put it on like a medium heat and then just stir fry based on the density of ingredient. So that's usually how I do that. I did have a fun time when my father-in-law was visiting. I had to cook a lot of food for like a bunch of people, and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? I have to cook a lot of protein. And normally I would just make like a sheet tray of something in one of those like disposable tin catering pans. But I was like, nah, I want to make pulled pork. And I haven't done like a full roast of something in a while. So I accidentally bought a pork shoulder that had skin on still and like the femur bone still in there, the hock. And I was just like, oh, okay. So then I proceeded to spend the next like hour and a half talking to my father-in-law while just like absolutely obliterating this huge chunk of meat in a very terrifying manner. I tried to be as nice as I could about it, but yeah. I'm also trying to take it a little easy for stream today because I think I'm getting a respiratory something. And I hope it's not a respiratory something. But I have that like... I was talking about being dry congested yesterday. But I have that like... the wheeze. The back of the throat wheeze and tickle in your throat. That just feels horrible. So fingers crossed that I don't get sick. But if anything, I'm likely to just... It's always my luck that I get sick on the weekends. Which is good because I don't use PTO, but... Oh, the pulled pork did come out very good, though. I did also scare everyone because I put maybe like 3 tablespoons of Marmite in that bitch. Yes, I put Marmite in my pulled pork. Would I do it again? For pulled pork, probably not. But the method would work for bira. Because what I did was I chopped it up into like 1-inch cubes because it was like a quick pulled pork recipe, not like a slow roast. So I made it in a pressure cooker. Chopped it up into like 1-inch cubes, 1.5-inch cubes. And then tossed it with some cumin, well, a lot of cumin, black pepper, a little paprika and cayenne, and mustard, ground mustard. And this was like fresh ground mustard. And then I let that sit, and then I rubbed it down with some pineapple juice and Marmite. And I let that marinate in the fridge to like tenderize because the pineapple juice eats away at the meat and tenderizes it. And then when I cooked it, I sauteed it in the pan, browned it on the sear setting, and then I threw it in there and threw a bunch of sweet baby raisin there because I don't know how to make barbecue sauce from scratch, and I have one that I like, and that's what'll work for me. It's not fancy, it's not authentic, but it works. And threw that in, got it like slightly covered with liquid, and then pressure cooked it for like an hour. And it was really good. I think it was a little... The thing I said about the Marmite is the Marmite was good. It was just almost a little bit too rich, like too salty for pork. Pulled pork tends to have like a sweetness to it, which the pineapple helped with, but it had that like earthy brown... it had brown flavor, which you would expect more with like a beef stew. Yeah, I don't know. It could be the weather. It could also be that I've been in contact with a lot more people because I've had to commute to work a little bit in the last couple of days. And I'll have to be doing that more regularly. So it could also just be that I've been around people who are sick. So we'll see. I'm hoping I can get away with not talking at work the next couple of days and just like obsessively drinking tea. I may have to bring in the big guns and like bring in tea because I leave some tea in my office, but I left tea that I don't like in my office in case other people want it. I have like a little stash of stuff I actually like, but I think I considered actually bringing full powdered matcha to work, and I was like, maybe that's too much. Maybe that's over the top, bringing like a bowl and a matcha whisk and matcha and some milk to like warm up, but I don't know. I already have slippers at my desk. It's fine. I'm trying to like get a good position for this to be seen. Da, 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 da. Through the loop, over, under, out. So what I usually do, I think there's like English style and continental style. I think I knit continental. Is like if I need to switch between a knit and a purl, which is literally how you make almost every design in knitting. If it's something like lacy, that's a combination of knits and purls and skipping stitches, and the tension makes those like gaps. But say I wanted to switch to a purl or a knit stitch right now because I'm purling, I would literally just yarns here, right in the front of my to be worked, bring it over into the back. That's it. Just over into the back. And then I would go through from the front to the back of this loop, over, through, and off. And that would be a knit stitch. That's it. IRL, as literally as IRL as I am ever willing to go in my life. But thumb reveal. Little claps for the thumb reveal. Look, it's the injury that's healing where I almost chopped my finger off a month ago. Yeah. I have wanted to. I just hadn't had the space to, frankly. And now I have the space to. And the setup to. I don't have ideal lighting for this, obviously. But, you know, I have space now. I dug up my ancient camera that says it's 1080p, but I have yet to believe it. I have yet to believe it. Yeah, I think the only other thing I would want is they make like overhead lights that you can just clamp onto your monitor. That would be really nice, but yeah, it's clearly. So that's maybe gonna be on the to-do at some point. But yeah, we were taking care of some chores around the house today, and I was like, dang, I have to play Elden Ring for stream. But then I also really don't want to yell because my throat is killing me, and I'm praying to dear God I'm not coming down with something. I was feeling it a little bit yesterday while I was trying to voice Momo, but brutal. How are you doing, Teeps? I hope things are doing well. I was actually watching a Battlefield streamer earlier today, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was a nice conversation. They absolutely did immediately assume I was a dude. And I was like, all right. Because you're talking about, like, I think we were talking about family backgrounds. And they're like, oh, man, you must be bald. Bald dude here. We got some bald dude in chat. And I was like, should I tell him? Nah, I'm just going to enjoy my time in chat being one of the dudes. You know. Let's talk about tanks and stuff. I don't know anything about tanks in Battlefield. I spawned in a tank for like the first time in years in Battlefield 5. And then I said, oh no, I'm in danger. That's fair. I mean, I haven't played much either. It's kind of just been like on a whim if I don't want to play something else or I'm like burnt out. I don't even have 2042 installed. I just have 5 installed because it's my comfort game and I have 1,300 hours in it. 1,300. Bald dudes. Yeah. Da, 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 da. dun, da, 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 da. By the way, if any of you wanted to start knitting, if you have literal string around your house and 2 chopsticks, you can knit. That's all you need. It is very accessible. So even if you're like, oh, I don't want to invest in the hobby, I want to try it out, you could totally just practice with that. I have a ball of like really, really cheap, I think it was like $1, like cotton acrylic yarn from Walmart that I got when I first wanted to try knitting. And I think it took me a couple of months to like be able to get anything going because it was really hard to figure out like how to hold my hands. But eventually I got the hang of it and I still have that. And usually what I do, and the thing I like about knitting is if you don't like what you're doing, I usually say like if it's just practice yarn or you're just learning, just keep trying to do it and keep going. And then you'll see the like as you progress the length here, you'll see the quality increase. Because frankly, the thing about fiberworks, like knitting and crochet, the hardest thing to get past when you're new is the fact that your project is very likely going to curl in your first couple of rows. And that can feel really disheartening because it feels like everything looks weird and doesn't look right. But as you get longer and longer, it will stop curling. So eventually a bunch of these curls will actually come out of it. This is more curled because my knitting needles here are essentially stuck together on a loop. This whole thing has like a nylon cord in it. And that's how you knit like a continuous tube. So say like socks or a beanie. Sometimes people will do that for sweaters. You can do this way. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. But before the nylon cord existed, and even if someone wanted something specific or they just didn't want to use it, instead you would just use 3 knitting needles and kind of make a triangle instead of a loop and just transfer your stitches from one to the other to the other. This way they just stay on, so it's a little easier. The only problem is sometimes, because these are interchangeable needles, which means that I can get much wider knitting needles if I want to and stick them on like around here. I think you might see the loop. There's like a little baby hole. I can essentially take a little pin, stick it through there and undo it, and it screws out. So those are great and I really like them, but I would say only get that if... I would say you really don't need circular needles. I probably didn't need to buy them as early as I did because I kind of got overwhelmed where I was like really eager to use them because that's what you see a lot of the knitting content creators using. But knitting flat with just 2 needles is really going to get you quite a long way because you can make some really amazing projects by just knitting flat and stitching together your projects at the end. When am I getting my scarf? Get in line, buddy. Get in line. I only have so many hands. I have a queen size blanket to finish, and I have a friend who was very kind to me over Christmas and got me a teapot and some treats and some tea and just like some other very thoughtful goodies that I wasn't expecting. And we always talk about our craft projects because they crochet. So we always talk about our craft projects together. And I was like, actually, I kind of want to use these. They're like 100 gram balls of yarn. I kind of wanted to use them. So I told them like, hey, let me know what colors you want out of these and I will try to make you something. Because I found a fairly brain dead project. It looks complicated because there's 2 colors, but it turns out to switch colors, for this at least, all you have to do is tie the yarn together in a knot and cut off the loose ends. What am I making right now? It will be a scarf. It'll be like a continuous scarf, so it's literally just a tube. But it's going to be really wide. So I want it to be like probably like 8 inches wide so that you can kind of put it up over your head, over your skull. I've tried, like, I know how to hand sew, but I do not have the patience for sewing or sewing machines. I barely have the patience for knitting. I think we live in a society where not everybody like sometimes people are very type A and sometimes people are very type B, and I think that crafting is for everyone. And it's about finding what makes you happy for crafting, not the proper, perfect way to do it. Unfortunately, sewing for me does require a lot more forethought and planning and measuring and math. Whereas knitting, I can kind of use some intuition on it. Obviously, some math is required to make sure things fit. But for like a scarf or a blanket, as long as you can understand the pattern and follow it, it's fine. Generally, the basic need to know for knitting patterns, like early on, is it a knit stitch or a purl stitch? If I want something to be, indented, you're swapping the stitch. So your basic is going to be knit stitches across, which gives it actually like this finish where it's like little V's. And then the purl stitches, which is literally just the inverse of a knit stitch. It's just a backwards knit stitch. Looks like this. And it raises and creates like a rib knit. So if this was all the same color, it would look like a rib knit. But if I flip it over, look, the dark purple now has the same V pattern. And that's the basics of knitting. It's all knits and purls, baby. Like, the more advanced you get, you might be like, oh, you'll slip a stitch, which means you'll pick up a stitch on your needle and just not knit it. You'll just bring it over to the next needle, and that can create a gap. Or you could knit a couple of together. So I would say your best place to start is learning knit and purl. Doing like some rib knits, which is alternating knit and purl, or cable knits actually were much easier than I expected. I would consider cable knits to be a beginner activity because literally all you do, I don't have my cable needle right now. So all you would need is a cable needle, and these are mine. I 3D printed it because I'm cheap and I don't want to spend $10 for a tiny piece of plastic. And all you do is you say, okay, I have this here. Ideally, you would probably be in between rib knits vertically instead of horizontally, which would be like going knit, knit, purl, purl as you go across. And you pick up however many stitches you want, pull them off, and then I would just go in here and start knitting. And then once I know it's going to be the end of that, I would work it from this needle here. So it's kind of like a hook that just saves them for later. And then when I go and do them later, it creates a twist in the in your stitch. So that's why you would normally do it on a rib knit, because you would have raised and lowered sections to make that more defined. Yeah, knitting. Da-da-da. What was I doing? Yeah, going backwards. Purl stitches I'm much slower at, so these go a lot slower than the other rows, which is kind of a bummer, but whatever. The loop fell off. Another thing I like about knitting, so I find with crochet, when I was learning that, it was much more difficult for me to pick up if I missed something or if I missed a stitch. It would just kind of like lump up on itself. We are making a scarf. A scarf. Hello. So it is currently a alternating knit and purl stitch and changing the color on them. It's my first time trying this technique. It's actually my first color work too, now that I think about it. I say it's color work, and I guess it is technically color work, but I feel like I'm cheating because when I hit the point where I need to switch from knit to purl, literally all I do is I get to my marked point, which is the start of the repeat, and then I just tie a knot in between the two colors, and I say, okay, we've changed colors, let's go. I know there's a whole thing about like floating your colors and all that, and I'm like, nah, this is pretty much one solid piece of material, so I'm just gonna tie it together. But this is probably like my first full year of knitting, so I haven't gotten that far along. I think finished works wise, I've really only made a scarf, and I have made a couple of coasters to learn. I have started a great many things, but I also like started a blanket as my second project, and that's just taken eons. I think it probably took me like 3 weeks to even get the count off started properly, because it's like 491 stitches to cast on, because it's a queen size blanket. And I had started it with a kind of like an interlocking raised square pattern, but I looked at it and it did not scale up well. Like, it looked fantastic on a baby blanket, but it didn't scale well for a full-size adult blanket. So instead, I decided I'm going to freeball it, and I just started taking a seersucker diamond pattern and scaling it up by like times 8% for a queen size blanket. And that's where months of my life have gone. And then I decided to start this because so many unfinished projects. This isn't black and white, it's purple and darker purple. I fell into the sock rabbit hole. Oh man. So I started the stream off and I was casting on another project, and then I was like, I should really finish this one. Because I was like, I think I could make fingerless gloves in one night. No, you can't. You fool. You absolutely cannot make fingerless gloves in one night. Even if it's knitting flat, you just simply cannot knit that fast. Girl, please. So I had a little talk with myself in the first 5 minutes of stream mentally. And then I was like, all right, let's pick up our other project and get to work on that. The delulu of crafters is universal. But that's the joy of it. It's a craft. And at the end of the day, when you're not making it for someone that is expecting it by a deadline, you get to spend however long you want on it. And that's what makes it relaxing. But I am easily swayed by the cable knit. I'm like, oh, what if I put a cable in this? Ooh. And I should stop because it's foolish. Though I am supposed to technically make another one of these for a friend of mine. So this is for a friend of mine and their partner, who both got me very sweet gifts, and I want to give something back to them. And also bust my stash, because I bought the Knit Picks like palette collections for like the green and purple before I even knew how to do color work. And I was like, well, I kind of want other yarn to make another blanket. And I just said, no, you're not allowed to buy more yarn until you finish what you have, like a responsible adult. Mm-hmm. So for the second one of this, I was considering putting some vertical ribs into it. I think I need to do a sample of it on like a really tiny in the round circular needle, because I want to try and put like one big rib in like the front of it, so opposite wherever the base is, and then maybe do a cable knit on that. I think that could be nice, have a little detail with it. Granny, we accept the granny here. I have accepted my life as a grandmother. Sometimes you may be made fun of for doing old people activities, but at the end of the day, if it makes you happy and it's relaxing, that's fine. Because listen, grandmas know how to stim. They know how to have their happy stim time. I am perfectly content just like listening to a podcast or the news and absolutely being in my own little mental world and just knitting away. And that is a very rejuvenating time for me. Thankfully, I can also, like, I've gotten to the point where if it's a simple enough project and the stitch is repetitive, I can talk while I am knitting and like hold a conversation. Some projects I haven't been able to do that for. So like lace work, I can't hold a conversation during. It's like, don't talk to me. I'm counting. If you talk to me, I'll kill you. But for stuff like this, where it's a row of the same thing, much easier. Also, being able to do that faster was recognizing the difference between a knit and a purl stitch. So understanding that knits look like V's, purls look like lines, essentially. Little bars across your work. Just makes it easier to count where you are. Because if I lose track of what row I'm on now, so if I don't know when to switch to the next color, I can literally just count how many rows are there. And then also accepting that at the end of the day, you may be off by a row and you're not going to go unwind your whole project for that, especially for something like this. But I am very excited because I'm a bit of a yarn snob. So this is all wool. So I hope that the people that are getting it will use it for a long time and enjoy it, because it feels very warm, and I'm very jealous that I don't make things for myself much. I really should make things for myself. I don't think I've made any project for myself. Though, I guess my first project was for my husband. And, you know, I've been wearing it all week. So, it's ours. It's ours now. It was a nice little scarf. And I knit that while I was going to PAX Unplugged. I had a 7-hour train ride, and I was just like knitting away. And it was really helpful because I was very overstimulated by the whole con environment. And I was like, I am dying. But being able to knit let me be a part of conversations a little bit more and not feel very overwhelmed with what to do with my face and my hands and my eyes. So yeah, heck yeah, scarves. I think my favorite was like, I had grown up learning crochet, so I've made a bunch of like crochet scarves in my life that are like, because that was the pinnacle of the crochet that I'd ever been able to achieve, was a crochet scarf. And I never really liked how they laid. It's just like a personal preference. So I really enjoyed being able to have just like a little detail where the scarf has just like a little long rectangle over the length of it that's just like inlaid with pearls. So it's knit stitch. It's garter stitch, I think is what it's called, where it's like swap between knit and purl for the whole thing. And then it's just straight stockinette stitch for a little bit to give it that inset design, which is really nice. Oh my god, the granny scare cardigans get me every time. Every time. Like I think I learned before granny square cardigans were really popular, and this was back when it was like you have to read the book and count with the stitch counter, and it was very stressful. So I feel like I might have enjoyed granny squares, but I also think I would have gotten frustrated because I think part of my learning process is I need to see the progression as I go and be able to like see the progress on the work. And when you're doing like 1,000 little granny squares, if you are having from my understanding, if you're struggling with a certain stitch, you kind of will continue to struggle with it because you're not really doing it enough. But also I don't understand anything more than just like make a rectangle and crochet. Oh, okay. The one you make in one go. Okay, interesting. Interesting. I do get very jelly of all those really nice like crochet mesh tops people have been making recently. I've been like, those look nice. Those look fun. Because knit has lace work, which is a whole lace work is pain. Okay, cool. Very cool. Woo! We're at the end of the row. I probably need to check to see if I do need to switch colors. Also, do I like properly cut my yarn when I switch colors? No, I use whatever is around me, including my teeth, my hands, nail clippers, cuticle cutters. Literally anything with a sharp edge. I think I've used a pair of keys to cut my yarn for swapping colors before. Also, I guess I can show you guys. This is my cat's favorite toy. It is her one and only favorite toy. And that's how you use them. They go on your knitting needles so that your project doesn't fall off. So I kind of have to hide my knitting projects when she's around if I'm like storing them so that she doesn't sniff those out and try to play with them, because she loves us throwing them and chasing them on the floor. Also, we had to buy... we have forced air where we live, and there are vents in the floors. And we had to purchase literal like child safety mesh nets for our vents, so that our cat did not start throwing things down the vents. But she's been good so far. We got her like a laser pointer thing, and she pretty much has loved it. I was surprised she hasn't come over today, because I would show her to everyone, because I actually have a flesh space. We are in flesh space, so I can show off my cat, but I think she's with Rebel right now. All right, I'll be right back. I gotta count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, one more row of pearls, and then we will swap to Knit Stitch Dark Purple. Where are we? What's going on? I think we're facing this way. I confused myself. I picked it up too many ways. Alright. I really should like shorten this so it's just the one thing, but whatever. There's like a little bit of a seam in between there because I loosen up my stitches quite a bit when I swap between the two rows, but generally, yeah, here, if I was knitting if I was knitting flat, at this point, this is like the end of where I cast on. So if I was knitting flat, I would literally just flip the needle over and then start pulling on with the blank needle that doesn't have anything on it. So you're essentially swapping your work from one needle to the other, adding a row as you go. But because this is knitting in a round and it's going to be a continuous loop, it's fine. We just keep going. Which I absolutely didn't believe, but I looked up and I was like, how do you knit in the round? And they're like, you just keep going. You don't flip your project. You just keep knitting. And I was like, oh, I've done that by accident before. Yarn. The store I do order my yarn from because I like their variety and selection and transparency in the fiber content and pricing. I like them because they have a lot of natural fiber yarns, and that's where I say I'm a yarn snob, because I am of the belief that I enjoy knitting practical use things and things that are going to be worn. And I want them to last a long time. So I will tend to prefer using something with mostly a natural fiber content like wool or cotton. So that one, it can be washed and dried. Maybe not in the dryer. Wool, not in the dryer, but you can like air dry it. Whereas over time, the thing about acrylic yarn is, and it is a very good place to start and start learning. I actually have a couple of huge balls of acrylic yarn that I have like in between projects on. If I'm like, oh, I just want to make like a chunky thing. I have some really thick yarn that's great for that. But I find that the natural fiber stuff holds up a little better because acrylic, if it gets warm, even from like sweat, it can start to kind of melt and fuse together. Now, the thing with wool is wool also can fuse together. So I think next time, if I want to make myself a project, I'll probably look for a wool that's not 100% wool. I might get one that's like a bit of viscose in it, which is like bamboo fibers, or something with nylon. Is that what people get in it? Nylon, something with a synthetic fiber in it, because synthetic fibers in wool can help stop them from matting together. And essentially what's called a felting. Yes. Because you'll see it a little bit on this coaster because it's been exposed to a lot of water in this very messy coaster. But it does start to like felt together and you lose the pattern on it. So you can see a little bit of it. Coasters. I do think wool makes for a good coaster, though. So if you have some spare wool, don't be afraid to make some coasters. The pattern might get lost a little bit. I think I have another one that my husband uses that has a cable knit in it, and that holds up a lot better. So I would say if you're going to do that, test out your cable knits and Celtic knot patterns. But they actually work really well. They may not absorb all the liquid from what you're putting down on your table, but they do what I like in a coaster, which is it wicks away some of the liquid and absorbs it. And the thing about these is they're washable. I had coasters that were like, not yarn, but they were like really densely packed textiles, like rolled up and sewn together, like those old kind of like cottage core cabiny rugs. And they were great coasters, but the thing was they were so densely packed together, if they got wet in the middle, they couldn't dry out and they started growing mold. So I was like, oh, brother, no, So I knit my coasters so that they can air out a little bit better. They have gaps in them. And usually if I just like double up 2 coasters, if it's a really damp beverage, particularly sodden, that'll do the trick. Now I am torn between next project being a teapot koozie or like a mug koozie. A mug koozie could be nice. No distractions. We have to work on our project. No new projects. We have to finish this one. But yeah. My great passions are keeping my tea warm because my tea is currently cold and I'm sad. And fiber works. But yeah, we have I think the only teapot, well, no, we have I think like a 3-cup ceramic teapot and a 4 to 5 cup glass teapot. I'd say 4-cup. So I rather like the ceramic one, but preferably stoneware. So my general preference is to have like hand-thrown stoneware and glaze like this. This mug, I don't want to tilt it over, but it says bitch on it because it's bitchin'. And I find that the slightly porous stoneware tends to hold up a little bit better. I know it can be prone to cracking at some point if there are issues and it's not like fully sealed. But I like it. It does the job. And it stays real warm, like for quite a long time. I find that any ceramic that has porcelain in it, which most modern mugs do, will lose heat much faster. Or at least it's more subject to wanting to keep the heat it has. Because the thing with porcelain is if you preheat porcelain, so say I had a porcelain teapot and I were to fill it with boiling water and then put my tea in, it would stay really, really warm for a really, really long time. But if I just had a teapot that was porcelain and I just put hot water in it, the porcelain would immediately suck all of that heat out of the tea, and the tea would be ice cold and the teapot would be hot. So thermal sciences ? Something about these stoneware like clay thrown mugs that I appreciate that it disperses that heat a little bit better, so the mug will retain some warmth and the tea also retains some warmth, and it's not like a constant thermal shock. Now I'm no ceramic scientist, but that's my hot take. But generally, if you want to make a really good pot of tea and you, regardless of what you're using, and you want it to stay warm, or a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and you want your mug to stay warm, you should really put boiling water in it and let it sit with that boiling water, or even like really hot tap water. The hottest water you can get a hold of and safely use, put it in your mug and like preheat it, because by the law of thermodynamics, if it's already hot, it will want to stay hot. Whereas, like, if you're putting hot water in a cold container, you're kind of fighting against it. Also, don't ever put hot water in a out of the fridge cold container, especially if it's glass. But generally, if it's something is frigid cold, don't ever put hot water in it or hot anything in it, because you can get what's called thermal shock. And it can explode. That happened to me at one point in my life where I was trying to make a pitcher of iced tea, and I kept my pitcher in the fridge. And then I went to go make another batch because I was like, oh no, I'm out of tea. Got my tea all ready, filled up the pitcher all the way to the top with boiling water. And then once it hit the top, I just hear crack. And the whole thing splashes out and onto me and onto my pajamas. And I had about 12 inches of secondary burns across my stomach. So please be safe with tea. Tea is a dangerous killer. I'm lucky enough that I was pretty aware of how to care for wounds and treat myself. So I did not need to go to the hospital. Well, okay. I did not go to the hospital. I should have gone to the hospital. Let's put it that way. Yes. In that instance, especially for burns, I would recommend going to the hospital because what they're going to do is going to be more enjoyable than what you will have to do at home. I don't want to talk about that process. They can help you do more to mitigate pain, and teach you about proper wound care and making sure that you're in a clean environment and clean dressings. I unfortunately know just enough to get in trouble, as I've been told. And what I can tell chat is I almost chopped my finger off with a hatchet about a month ago. And it's finally healing up that I just have like a little boo-boo. But it was like this much finger gone. I think it took a little bit of the nail with it, but not much. And I had a moment where I was like, I don't know if I need to go to the hospital or not, because this is a lot of blood. And I literally just packed it with wound care, with like gauze. I wiped it down with iodine and alcohol, which hurt like I thought I was going to pass out. Kept it not super tight, but I covered it with gauze and wrapping. And then I sat in bed with my arm above my head for like 7 hours until it stopped bleeding. Oh yeah, no, my husband did not give me the end. This is the dumbest shit I've done in a long time. Long time. So I learned my lesson. Also, it hurt really bad. Like, I'm pretty sure I cut the edge, like at the edge of a nerve. At the edge of a nerve or something. But it wasn't deep enough that it was like, it wasn't like gushing blood or anything. So I was just kind of like, well, what are they going to do to the hospital? Obviously, they would give me like local painkillers, and then they would bandage it. Maybe super glue it shut. But like, yeah. So I just had the like cartoon banditoed thumb for like a month and changed it out every couple of days. Although I did make a very silly mistake, which was that I made a rookie mistake for wound care. And that was to, because I was so panicked about my injury, I just tried to get a bandage on it as fast as possible, which happened to be mesh gauze. And if you have a first aid kit, I will save you some suffering and give you some intel, which is that your first aid kit will have mesh gauze and fiber gauze, or like another kind of gauze that's like more like a cotton pad or something like that. Make sure it's not a cotton pad. It'll say gauze on it. But it's more like a pad, right? So you'll want to use that on the actual wound and then cover that with the mesh gauze. Because the thing about the mesh gauze is it's very absorbent. And the other stuff is not so much. It's just better for helping stop the bleeding and get a clot on there. So the issue you have with mesh gauze is that it will, because it's very absorbent, it will try to absorb everything that your body is producing to try and close that wound in a way that will be inseparable from the gauze without extreme pain and suffering and possibly having to reopen the wound to get it out. So now you learned. Hello, you kitty cat? Hi, I have video on, but it's just my hands.
She just woke up. She was napping on me.
Shall we give a cat appearance? Can I have her? Is she spicy?
She's spicy. She just
Give me the spicy cat.
She just woke up.
Give me the spicy cat. Give me this spicy cat. 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 Meh. She is here. Hello. What's this? Oh, she does not care. Hi, baby. Okay. Hi, Merlin.
And there goes the cat.
She does not care. Dun, 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 dun. She's like, I just want my crinkly paper back on.
What?
I put some crinkly paper down. She's having the time of her life. So, because my cat is mildly addicted to and obsessed with her little randomizer laser toy, she's been getting much more active. And every time I pick her up and she's like, I need a nap and I need to cuddle, I end up feeling her shoulders and her arms and just realizing that my cat is jacked. My cat's like one of those ripped street cats that tries to fight everything. Because she tries to fight everything. Yeah, who you fighting, Lulu? Hi. Okay. She's like, leave me alone. I was worried. Well, that's the thing is, like, I was worried my cat was gaining weight. Like, oh, maybe we're feeding her too much and we need to adjust her thing. But she's not like an obsessive eater, because we'll give her treats in the morning and she chases them. And sometimes she'll just not eat them because she only wants to chase them. And she has like an auto feeder, but sometimes we're like, she's older now. She's not a kitten anymore. Maybe we need to redo her feeding schedule. No, she's building muscle. She's so jacked. Because you can tell when she goes through fits and she's much more active, like we have a toy that gets a lot of her energy out. She gets ripped. There's no other words for it. You ever seen a cat with biceps? Because I have. It's my cat. She'll come and she'll lie on my shoulder and rest her head on my shoulder, and her arms are just like laying over. So essentially she like lays her arms, head, and neck over my shoulder and just kind of hovers there. And I just feel like she's about ready to, like, I don't know, launch off of me in some shonen adventure battle anime. And, like, I'll rub my face against her paw because it'll be right there. And I'll be like, oh, it's so soft. It's so soft. And then you just feel the muscle underneath it. And you're like, buff cat. It's so soft. It's so soft. I like a chunky cat too. I grew up with chunky cats. Well, we had one very big chunky cat with long fur, and then we had one very, very tiny cat. And I guess we're filling out the lottery right now because we got buff cat. Although once again, I'm glad she's using her legs more now that she has more space to run around. Because there was a period where she was getting really, really buff in the shoulders. You know, her gains were all in the shoulders, and our cat was skipping leg day. So we don't want our cat to skip leg day. And thus she has a laser toy now. But genuinely, she did not have as much control or muscle mass over her legs. And we think it could be some slight negative effects from when we adopted her. We adopted her at about 9 months old, and she had been in the shelter for about... No, we adopted her about 11 months old. She'd been in the shelter for about 9 months. So she had gone to the shelter when she was literally only like 2 months old and been in the shelter for a majority of her growing time, which leads me to believe that she may not have used her hind legs as much because she probably didn't get so much running time. So when we got her, she would just try to climb everything with her arms, and she still likes to. But she can be a little clumsy with her back legs from time to time. They work, and she uses them, but she prefers using her arms. So she gets a little derpy. She hops more than she uses her legs in like actual leg step movement. But we try to make sure she exercises them and gets a workout. Because as far as we're aware, she doesn't have any like neurological damage. She just, you know, again, experience muscles forming weird. She may be chaos, but she's a good kitty. Bum, ba-da-dun, dun, dun. Bum, bum, ba-da-da-dun. Ba-da-dun, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, essentially I'm just pulling this down so I have a little more like flat surface to grab when I'm knitting. Sometimes I have days where I feel very clumsy when I'm knitting and it's like a struggle to get in the groove, and then sometimes I'm just zooming. So I'm not at the point where I'm like super consistent yet. I can get more consistent when I'm not knitting in the round, but I find I'm always much slower at knitting in the round because I feel like I'm yanking the yarn along. And maybe I'm using loops that are too short or something. I don't know. Maybe I gotta like grease up the circular needle. You gotta get some bacon grease on there to get things moving. I mean, that's not necessarily a half bad idea. One thing I would do a lot, which maybe I should do again, is I would put some moisturizer on my hands before I knit, because I find that the yarn can dry out your hands a lot. So I would put moisturizer on my hands so that my skin that was dry wouldn't get caught on whatever I'm trying to pick up or have like static electricity. And through that, some of the oils would like get on my needles when I was up here on the needle. And that would that would grease the gears, lube up the needles. Which is why I'm always like very pro steel needle. I had wooden needles when I started learning and they were okay. But when I crocheted, I always used a steel crochet hook. So like, yeah, I'm used to the slipperiness. So it's not hard for me to control. The lack of slipperiness now, on the other hand, that I don't like. Because I feel like I'm expending more energy to pull the yarn along. And then it gets caught. Maybe I just need to sand the needles better, but we'll get there eventually, maybe. I don't even know where my wooden knitting needles are, actually. Somewhere. Right now, I just have most of my knitting tools in either like this bag right here for stuff that I might actively need, or things that are for finishing a project, which I have. Where are they? Okay. I have my, oh no, I already put them back in here. These are little like tapestry needles that you use to sew your projects together. So I keep stuff in this little bag, like needles, stitch markers, anything that's like around the size for the yarn that I'm using. And then, crochet hooks. So oftentimes if you get a knitting set, they'll come with crochet hooks, that are like together like this. The reason you get these, and this is a very helpful thing, so don't get rid of them, is that if you drop a stitch, which means you miss one and you keep going, you can fix it. No matter how far along you are, you can fix it. You can just keep pulling it up with a crochet hook. Yeah, and then knitting markers, so. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum. Yeah. I like this set. It was definitely worth it. I was like, I already have needles. I don't know if I really want to get like a little set of a bunch of different sizes of needles, but honestly, it's been great. Hi. Although I have had people say that apparently it's very strange to go to fingering weight or DK weight early on knitting, but I don't know, maybe because I crocheted with really thin yarn, this just feels more natural to me. Like the chunky stuff, I feel like I miss stitches more because I'll just like get on a path and it'll slip right off because they're too loose. Whereas like my tension feels just right on fingering weight yarn. So now I have a whole bunch of fingering weight yarn for projects that are going to take forever to finish that I need to use. I also 3D printed some row markers, and I used them like once, and they were such a pain in the butt that I didn't use them again. So they've just been sitting in here. The thing I 3D printed that I use the most is the stitch markers. Well, no. I think the best 3D print I did for knitting was I actually 3D printed a bobbin winder, which was pretty great. It was a nightmare to try and get put together because it didn't have like clear instructions. It was just kind of like, oh, you need these parts. But we got it, and now my husband enjoys it so much that if I need something, I'll just be like, hey, can you wind me this into this? And he'll be like, okay. Though you don't really need one of those unless you're buying. I would say I had purchased some skeins that come in like, instead of coming in a cake like this, they come in like a figure 8 of twisted yarn. It's like twisted together like that. Those are, in my opinion, nightmares to undo. I was so traumatized the first time I got those because they were such little baby skeins too. Ugh, so annoying. So that's where a bobbin winder could be nice. I'd also, if I was getting those like big tubular ones, I'd probably also wind those too because they can get knotted. But the little cakes like this have been pretty good. And I'm glad that more yarn makers are doing them rather than the weird oblong tubes of my youth. And then you either pull from the middle or you pull from the outside. But if you pull from the middle, you just watch it slowly deflate, and that's half of the fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mostly my time knitting on this project has been over the holidays while people were over. Sometimes I'll try to set some time aside before bed to knit for like 15 to 20 minutes while I'm listening to like a podcast. Or, and my method for doing that, because I'm too lazy to get up and shut the light off, has been just to like stick my phone under the sheet or the comforter cover and have it like disperse the light so it's not super bright up towards my knitting, and I get this like, little spotlight right on my knitting here. It's great. And then my partner doesn't even realize I'm knitting, and I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. We have headlamps, so I could literally just get the headlamps, but I think that's a little too much. So that's what I work on it. Or I've been working on it while I've been playing Baldur's Gate. So I have a friend that I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 with, and we've been playing through tactician mode, and I felt bad because I've just been like, can we play? Can we play? Can we play? Because it's not only just like, oh yes, I'm eager to play the game. It's like, I need my knitting time. I need my stim time. I need to just disassociate and knit while someone discusses the intricacies of tactics in a video game. And I just go, yeah. I cast Sleet Storm. I would say one other tip for knitting especially is like, yes, you can be like very on the needles here, but ergonomically speaking, if it starts to hurt you and it starts to feel really sore, you might want to change up how you're pulling your yarn. Because I find if I'm really like in, out, scoop, and I'm really like doing more of a scooping motion rather than just sliding in, my hands get really tired real fast, and I can injure myself. Whereas if I position my working yarn correctly and I just slide this in, or try to, big fail now that I'm talking about it, but if I just slide this in using the point of the needle, then I can loop this up without it being too difficult to get on and off. Because it'll want to go back out the way it came in. So we're just pulling it through with a little pressure to the right and off. I don't know how I'm going to get up tomorrow morning. I got to get up at like 5:30, the latest tomorrow morning. And Thursday morning. This is my life now. This is my life now because I chose to go in earlier. Although honestly, if Revold has to also go in, I might just make him drop me off at work so I don't have to park and walk to my office. Be like, you drop me off. I don't care if it's a little earlier. Just drop me off because I won't be out in the cold longer. I don't want to be cold. That is, like, I don't dread the early morning that much. I don't dread the walk. I dread the cold of early morning. The pitch black and the freezing, biting cold. Like, I've done so much to escape that. I grew up in a very cold area. And I don't want to be cold anymore. Grandpa, I don't want to be cold anymore. Well, that's too damn bad. Da, 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 da. Hi. You fighting the cat? Hi.
She wants me to chase her.
Oh, so we have a thumb reveal on stream. Light. Just so you can see what I'm doing. We have a thumb reveal.
Oh no.
Thumb and pointer finger reveal. Ooh. See who this VTuber really is. This VTuber has dry hands. That's what this VTuber has. It needs a moisturizer. Bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. I would also like to thank the 15-year-old webcam and the 6 hair ties currently holding our capture setup in place today. And the tape that is not being used at all. But really, it's really carrying its own weight. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum. Mm-hmm. What should I bring to work tomorrow? I have barbecue chicken left over. Maybe I can make some instant mashed potatoes to take with me. Some vegetables, like sauteed veggies, peas and cabbage. I could probably do that. Sauteed peas and cabbage, maybe with some caraway seed in it. A little vinegar, a little veggie salad. Not sauerkraut, but maybe sauerkraut. I'm actually craving sauerkraut for some reason. So I'm probably going to make kielbasa and sauerkraut later this week, which I'm excited for. No, I'm realizing I'm supposed to make it with potatoes in it. So I might have to add potatoes to my grocery order because I forgot to order potatoes. Usually it's like an onion, some rinsed sauerkraut, kielbasa, and potatoes, like chopped potatoes in the pressure cooker. And this is how my family grew up eating it. Revold made me food! Yay. Then you would pressure cook it to get all the flavors all simmery and juicy together. And it also cuts down on that like vinegariness from the sauerkraut. With some brown sugar, caraway seeds, bay leaf, pepper, salt, and a little bit of ketchup or tomato paste. But the ketchup hits the spot, honestly. It cuts the greasiness of the kielbasa quite well. I'm gonna go. I'm freaking hungry too. I might go soon. Revel just messaged me that there are dumplings on the stove, so dinner calls. I'm doing that thing where I'm like, I gotta go knits a whole row. This is just gonna be short anyway, because my voice is getting progressively worse as the stream goes on. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm gonna go get some dumplings. That's gonna be it for me for the night. I know it's short, but I would like to be able to speak at some point. So thank you for hanging out for the what's the thing? The heart? How do Zoomers do this? Touch fingies. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out and chatting and indulging me while I knit for stream. Instead of play video games like a real gamer. This is really fun. We got like a row done. It was very relaxing. I wish I could listen to City Pop on blast, but YouTube and Twitch won't allow me to do that. But otherwise that would be what I would be doing right now. So I'm going to head out. Have a good night. Be kind to yourself. Don't give up. Keep going. Do another row. Give it another try. And if people are being mean to you, don't try to get back. Just don't let it get to you. So that's the morals of the story from the stream tonight. We will cap up our Piggly Wigglies for the ones that I didn't cut the caps off of. And oh, that's so warm. That's so warm. My fingies are cold. And I'll catch you later. I am hoping, if I have a voice, to be back on Saturday for something. But I will catch you later, everyone. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.